Hey everybody, it is January 17th. It's a Thursday. I usually only have one class on Thursdays, but it's been canceled tonight, so I cannot tell you how happy I am. Anyway, as promised, today is gonna be my coming out video. I'm gonna try and keep it as short as possible, but you know how these things go, they get a little long. Anyway, without any further ado, I'll get right into it. Sounds at first like a lot of stories you've probably already heard. Came from an incredibly conservative religious background. I was a born-again evangelical Christian. Now, besides that, my family homeschooled me for almost my entire life up to 6th grade. Now, we weren't the type of homeschoolers that associated with other homeschoolers either, so I actually didn't know, let alone was friends with, anybody my own age until I was around 12 or so. So I had never even heard the word gay. It doesn't come up in my family, at least it didn't used to. We never talked about it, never even heard of the concept, didn't know that two men or two women or two whatever could get together that way, let alone be happy and love each other. But once I found it out in 6th grade, because you know, of course, once you enter public school, all of a sudden you're introduced to a bunch of new stuff, I realized that that was me. I had been having those attractions since I was really little. My first crush in memory was on Aladdin, the cartoon. Yeah, but it didn't click until I knew that that was even possible. However, as I said, incredibly conservative religious background, so I thought that I was possessed by a demon. Didn't tell parents, didn't tell pastors, nobody. I just would go to bed every night crying and praying my little heart out to God to remove the demon, to perform an exorcism. And, well, obviously it never happened. Now, when I say every night, I mean every night. I'm not just trying to say that it happened all the time. It was literally every night for years. Now, when I eventually, I don't want to say lost my religion, but I'm having problems coming up with a better phrase at the moment. When I became a deist or an agnostic, and organized religion stopped playing such a large role in my life, I no longer saw it as possessed, but I still saw it as unnatural, a disease of sorts. And so I knew that at the very least, I would experience a lot of discrimination, at least I thought, in society if I admitted that I liked men. Besides, I was so young I didn't know anybody else that liked men. So I didn't figure that there would be any practical reason, at least at that time. And so I was able to convince myself that I wasn't actually gay, I was bisexual. And so as long as I just had relationships with women instead of men, nobody had to know that I was attracted to men. I thought I had a brilliant plan. See, the problem is, part of being sheltered during my early childhood is that we didn't have internet. So when we did end up getting internet around when I was 13 or so, I wasn't used to the internet in any way. I certainly didn't know that it kept a history of sites visited, let alone know how to erase the history. So eventually one day my father saw a bunch of interesting sites in the history and sat me down with my mother for a little talk. I was able to convince, I thought both of them, but it turns out just to have been my father, that it was because I had never heard the word gay, I had never heard of the concept before, and so I was just researching, trying to figure out what it was, and I decided it most definitely wasn't for me. I had him convinced. Thought I had her convinced, not so much. So one day, years later, my mother and I have a really close relationship, but that particular day we were yelling at each other in the car, just arguing viciously about something. I can't even remember what it was, and neither can she. But I thought to myself, I have to change the topic. Anything would be better than this. And so the first thing that came to mind came out of my mouth. Mom, I like guys. Dead silence for a couple minutes. It went well, though. She said, I was pretty sure that you were, and I was hoping for your sake that you weren't. Now, at first that sounds bad, but what she meant by it, my mother's strength isn't really in her words, was that she knew that I would have a much harder time in life because of it. And so she had been hoping that that wasn't the truth, so that I wouldn't have a harder life. And look, she still had tons of room for growth. She didn't support gay marriage or anything along those lines yet. She still had room for growth. And she's like end phase now. She's good with all of it. But she wasn't back then. What she was good with was that her love for me was not going to change. So that was a really good, strong foundation. So unfortunately at this time, I had been dating a girl, a best friend, for over a year. And it went on for a couple more months before I was able to really just admit to myself, no, I'm not bisexual, this isn't going to work, and I need to be honest with her. And so we broke it off. And when it comes down to it, we had been feeling more like brother and sister than boyfriend, girlfriend anyway. Nothing had ever really happened. And so 1 or 2 months after that, I realized, okay, it's time to start coming out to a few friends. Wasn't ready to come out as gay, so I started coming out as bisexual. February 8th, 2010. One of the few dates I will ever remember to the day that I die, and I'm sure of that. And I took one of my best friends into a back room during lunch to sit him down and say, I hope this doesn't change our friendship, but I have to be honest with myself and with you. I like guys, I'm bisexual. It went great. And so we went back to lunch, and almost all of my best friends were seated at the lunch table, and so I said heck with it, and got it done with there. Again, all positive responses. So when I went home that day, on Facebook, I made a post, I'm coming out, so you better get this party started. Because I thought it was so clever back in high school, of course. It really went pretty damn well. And then again, I come from Vancouver, Washington, which is about 7 minutes, miles, whatever, away from Portland, Oregon. So an incredibly gay-friendly area. The Westboro Baptist Church came to protest the gay-friendly policy of my school district, actually. There were only a few of them that showed up, and the community, hundreds of people from the community, came to line up on the other side of the road for the counter-protest. So I grew up in a really great community to be gay. And as I said, I did at first come out as bisexual. And so for the first couple of weeks when people would ask, hey, I heard that you came out as gay, I'd correct them and go, no, bi, not gay, but thanks. After a couple of weeks of that, it was just like, whatever. Let's just do this, because I hadn't received any negative energies, and so I stopped correcting them, and I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And I started positively identifying and starting to develop some sort of pride about it. It was no longer a possession, and it was no longer a disease, and it was no longer something to be ashamed about. And that was so incredibly liberating. Now, I've had some rough spots in my family, but that's a different matter. But you know, what I think about pretty frequently is how easy I had it, and how hard it is for some others, some of you, maybe. And I just want to let you know, if you're in a position like that, there are places that can help. There's the Trevor Project. There are a bunch of us that are more than happy to help you through it if we can, if you message us. If our experiences can help you have a better time of it, it's worth it. As I said, I had it pretty easy, and some people have it really hard, and if I could have had it just a little harder so that somebody else could have had it a little easier, I would do it in a heartbeat if that choice were mine to make. I want you to know that. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone when it comes to that. We're a community. You don't ever have to feel alone. And so I hope that for some, this might have been slightly entertaining. I hope for others, informative. But what I really wanted out of creating this video, what I really wanted, was that if this video can touch anybody, even one person, and help them go through that process. The coming out process is by far the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life. And it's so much harder for many others than it was for me, and yet it was still the hardest thing in my entire life. If I can, through this video, through talking with any of you, make it just a little easier for you, it's all worth it, even if it's just one person. That's how people can make a difference in the world, even just by changing one person's life for the better. And so that's why I made this video. And so I really hope that it helps somebody out there. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. There's a like button. There's a subscribe button.